Now, before you flip out in the comments because you saw the title and your immediate visceral reaction was, I don't hate Mondstadt, what in the hell is this idiot talking about? Well, obviously I'm being hyperbolic because not many people truly hate Mondstadt. But what I am referring to is two community polls I did about a month ago, and now I'm finally getting around doing something about it like I intended to. And the polls went a little bit, well, as I expected for the most part. But before I go any further, I should at least explain what these polls are or were for people who didn't participate in them, or maybe did and forgot. I made two polls, both with the premise of getting rid of something we already have. In one poll, the Archons, and in the other poll, the regions. And it was by design that I left the reasoning a little vague. And what I mean by that is I did not tell people that they were getting rid of an Archon story or their gameplay, or in the case of the regions, all of the characters that we have from it. I left it open because what is important to each person is different. To a monkey brain dialogue skipper like myself, I don't really care about the story that much. Like, sure, I do experience some of the story and I like what I see, but the logical answer to me is to just axe Inazuma because it's the newest and it's the easiest to get rid of without impacting anything retroactively. If you get rid of Mondstadt, everything's all of a sudden kind of messed up and doesn't make any sense. Then you can apply the same reasoning to Raiden Shogun. She's the newest Archon, so her story has the least impact overall. You can get rid of her and not mess anything up. But even despite that, some people still had different opinions, as you would expect. You know, not every story is going to impact every person the same way. So before I get into the results, I just want to go over what my predictions were for the result. When it comes to regions, I knew that Mondstadt was going to get shit on harder than Signora. Like, sure, I love Mondstadt. I like the green grassy plains. I like the simplicity of it. But ultimately, I just can't say that I even remotely prefer it over the varied landscape of Liyue, or to the other extreme Inazuma with like an island covered in thunder and lightning and an island with a gigantic skeleton on it that Raiden Shogun cut in half, or Watatsumi with its beautiful fantasy elements. You know, in my opinion, it just isn't a fair fight. Mondstadt just doesn't stand a chance. It feels dated and old, but still holds a place. And don't get me wrong, I love it. But if I was forced to choose, Mondstadt is gone. Now, as for the Archons, this one was a lot tougher. I still predicted that Venti was going to get wrecked, just like Mondstadt, because just like Mondstadt, he is the oldest of them. And no, not in terms of lore, just gameplay and how long we've had him. That also means that a lot of people are probably bored with him, or just straight up replaced using him with Kazuha outside of a couple comps that Venti is irreplaceable in. So I just didn't assume Venti stood a good chance in this poll. I knew for sure that Zhongli was going to have the least. That's just obvious. So first up, let's talk the region poll. Mondstadt obviously took a lead just like I expected, but what I did not expect was Inazuma to come up this close behind it. And what I certainly did not expect is that many people to vote out Liyue. And to see why they went this way, we're going to look at some of the comments and see what people said. And you know what? There were actually quite a few comments similar to this, just saying they hate the region. They don't like exploring there. They don't like being a place where the air hurts their face. And all I can say to that is, I am Canadian. That is literally our reality. You know, just instead of taking electro damage, we take cryo damage every second. A lot of the more upvoted comments around here were more defending Mondstadt rather than telling their reasons of why they voted for something else, which is pretty telling because a lot of people feel strongly about Mondstadt. They love the story, they love the mystery, they feel attached to the beginning of the game. You know, understandable stuff. As I said, nostalgia is a powerful drug. Which leads to the most popular comments. That, of course, being that Mondstadt is kind of like the soul of Genshin Impact, and in a lot of ways it is. A lot of players are going to associate Mondstadt with discovering Genshin Impact and learning to love the game. And this, of course, being before you knew about resin or about farming for artifacts from domains that do not want to give you shit. You may have known about the gacha system, but you may not have been burned by it yet. So really, the game was just all good feelings for a lot of people at this point. You had so much to discover, so much to learn, so much to find out. You know, you were playing find the treasure chest, connect the dots all over Mondstadt, just going from chest to chest to chest. And now after that's all said and done, Mondstadt is kind of a barren region that you have no real reason to go back to for the most part. That being, of course, why it didn't have a good time in the polls. It's old. It's solved. It's farmed to basically obsolescence. The bounties are hell. We may return to Mondstadt because it's a very compact and convenient town to condense your resin in and go to Catherine and the blacksmith. But outside of that, there's only a handful of elites to kill if you elite farm. Majority of the artifact spots are all in Liwa and Inazuma now. So from the gameplay point of view, Mondstadt just didn't really stand a chance. And then there's Liwa, which I really feel just got spared because Mondstadt and Inazuma are both lightning rods. One is the newest and it's the easiest to justify getting rid of, and the other is the oldest, which also is another justifiable reason to get rid of something. And then Liwa is just kind of in the middle. It's got a lot of people's favorite characters. It's a very fun region to explore, at least I think so. Tons of elites, tons of artifact spots. I really think it just kind of has everything going for it, and I'm honestly surprised it got as many votes as it did. And let's move on to the Archon Poll, which I feel had some more interesting discussion around it. As for poll results, however, basically the same dealio here. You know, Mondstadt, well, Venti in the lead with Raiden Shogun lagging behind, and honestly, Zhongli with a shocking any votes, really. I'm surprised anyone wanted to vote him out. Then again, you know, I say that, and then I AFK with Zhongli in anywhere for like 3 seconds. He starts talking about osmanthus wine, and I too would start to consider wanting to vote this asshole out. So I mean, let's talk why. Why would people want to vote Zhongli out? Well, from the people who were willing to share their thoughts, we at least learned from them that it's pretty much mechanics. And by mechanics, I mean the fact that they don't exist anymore the moment you get your hands on Zhongli, which obviously leads to people thinking he's a problematic character or he's a boring character, which, you know, understandable and kind of true. A lot of the comments on this one are actually people confused because the comment section was really just riddled with a ton of Raiden hate and people saying that they just yeet her out of the game by choice, like without even being forced to choose with a poll like this. And all I can say to that is, I guess the comments were mostly story-centric people, where gameplay people like myself just kind of voted Venti out and said, screw you, and moved on. Which, yeah, that checks out. That's totally what I would do. I feel relatively safe in assuming that the story-driven people probably leaned heavily towards Raiden, and the gameplay-oriented people probably leaned heavily towards Venti, because Venti is kind of getting power crept out slowly. We have Kazuha now, which is kind of like the most powerful Anemo character. I think most people would agree with that. And a lot of enemies now are becoming more resistant to Venti's burst, just meaning that he's not as generally usable as he once was. There will of course be the people who just hate Zhongli's playstyle, either what he represents or what he allows. However, that aside, I just think Venti is the most boring of the Archons to play. And I think a lot of people would probably agree with that, because he's just kind of like a CC machine. Zhongli may not be the most exciting either, but you know, he's got a fancy auto attack, which it really never used, but you also get to have order. And Raiden is just fun as hell. You can't change my mind on that one. Luckily for us, this is just a hypothetical. A fun one. For me anyway. Seeing people work through these tough decisions is, it's fun. I like the discussion. You know, as more regions come out and we get more Archons, I would love to keep updating this poll. You know, it's going to become more difficult because YouTube community posts only let you pick so many options, but it'll be interesting to see how people's opinions change over time. And if you would like to take another stab at defending your reasonings for who you voted for, or maybe you didn't and you would like to go now and talk about it in the comments below, I'd love to read it. I want to hear why you picked what you picked, or maybe that you're just shocked and disgusted at what other people picked because you don't agree with them. Either way, I'd like to hear down below, and you know, keep things civil, guys, because everyone has their own opinions. Not every story is going to impact everyone the same. Some people are going to want more dark stories. Some people are going to want stories with happier endings, you know, to each their own, and respect everyone's opinions. And moreover, if you are one of the people who voted out Zhongli or Liwa in either of these polls, I especially want to hear from you and why, because not a lot of those people spoke up, and I think for good reason. You would get attacked, but don't attack them, but also explain yourselves. And while you're down there, maybe also subscribe, like the video, go on my Discord if you're feeling spicy, all that good stuff.